Hi guys. So today I'm still a little ill, but I wanted to talk about the history of being diagnosed with DID and how some experts are talking about it. And one of the things doctors talk about in this diagnostic book I'm reading here is it says most DID patients will come for treatment with a long history of involvement in the mental health system. They will have a number of previous therapists and an average of 2.7 to 3.6 previous psychiatric diagnoses. The picture in old charts, discharge summaries, consultation notes, and agency reports will likely be inconsistent and confusing. So let's talk about that. So for my assessment history, it dates all the way back to the beginning. When I first was being assessed, especially for disability, my paperwork can be tracked all the way to preschool. Okay. I wish it could go further back, but it don't. Some people can, some people can't. Some people can't get a full history. I, however, do. And in my history, you will see different variations of styles and things that had happened in my drawings, my writing, even my assessments for preschool, where one minute they think I'm retarded and they give me low scores and want to hold me back. But then a couple months later, they redo the assessment and I'm perfectly fine. But even in them charts, they show inconsistencies, problems with speech one minute, and then even working with other children, they found that I was not socialized very well. So I would rather play with the animals and communicate with the animals on the farm than I did with children, because I didn't have a lot of children around me. I was grew up as a free-range child, which means you learn as you go from sights, sounds, touch, all that. So in this book, it states through Ross and Putten, where they're collecting information, which is funny because on TikTok these people say, oh, they don't collect information, they don't know about DID. So they talk about assessing their patients, and these items are many years in age they look at, years in the mental health system, prior diagnoses, other psychiatric diagnoses, number of personalities, percentage of the males and females, evidence of child sexual abuse, evidence of child physical abuse, suicidal attempts, child personality descriptions. So basically, they look into your school records to see if there's switching of grade levels and attitude and all that, which they did with mine. Personalities of the opposite sex, so male alternative states and female alternative states, and amnesia. So they look into all these things, your hospital records and your psychiatric records, inpatient stay. And the thing is, I have shown in previous videos evidence of those items that I have. And these are things that you're not going to find on TikTok. Another thing they talk about is previous diagnoses. So like for me, most of my psychiatric care started when I was about 13, 14 years old. And there was an inconsistency with my behavior where I'd come in very shy, very quiet, and then all of a sudden I'd come in again and I'd be this erratic teenage child. They had no clue what was going on. So, there was a diagnosis already then of having anorexia, mood swings. They didn't quite get PTSD then. That was diagnosed later by another therapist. And then it was diagnosed to CPTSD. Then it was diagnosed with BPD. So there's these signs and symptoms from past records showing that there was an inconsistency of trying to figure out what I had. Now, another thing you will notice with people that have DID, as it states here in this diagnostic book, self-destructive behavior is very common with DID. Of the 236 cases, 72% had attempted suicide, 2.1 had actually, ended their lives. The most common forms of self-destructive behavior were drug use and self-inflicted injuries, and I won't go into detail because that could be triggering. Patients may be amnesic from these symptoms, so they don't even know they're doing it, which is something I had dealt with. And a lot of the time, alternative states will harm the body as a way of, they think, as a coping mechanism to deal with DID. So next, let's talk about some of the symptoms in this book to do with DID. Again, this is Clinical Features based out of a Colin Ross clinical book. And it states here a lot of things that are very interesting. And one is classical DID blank spells have a discrete onset and ending. They may vary from seconds, minutes, to hours, to days. Some patients have amnesic episodes of many years, periods when other alters were continually in control. Because the blank spells are really specific features of DID, once the differential diagnosis has been pursued, I will discuss them more in detail. A final common feature of DID is severe headaches. Occurring in 78.7% of cases, the headache is often associated with a switch, so that a headache followed by a blank spell is a true cue for DID. So let's talk about that. So there were times I have medical records in ER visits of severe headaches to where I couldn't even open my eyes. I thought I had, believe it or not, I thought I had dementia or a brain tumor at one point, trying to get this figured out. And I was only, I want to say 28, 29 when the severe headaches and the somatic symptoms showed up at their worst. And this was even before I had been an inpatient stay. And it literally feels, for me, switching to an alternative state feels like that feeling for when I literally feel like I'm going to throw up. You know that feeling right before you throw up, that hot flush, and then the pounding in the head and the pounding of the heart. And my heart rate will rise, which has been seen in my assessments. My blood pressure will rise, and switching for me is very painful. Some switches can be a little less, and some switches can be a lot. And it seems like the smaller the alternative state, the more intense the pain is. And these switches sometimes can take a few seconds, and sometimes they can take up to 15 minutes, where I'm just sitting there in a blank stare, fighting with myself to not switch, because I don't want to. You know, it's not fun, it's not glamorous, it's not something that I want to do. So here in the criteria book, it states examples of triggers for switching can include color, touch, that's like sight, sounds, and smells, sexual arousal, the need to perform a specific function, the company of certain people, people that could be from your past, a specific emotion such as fear or anger. Some people find it looking in a mirror at themselves can be triggering. I've dealt with mirror issues. Hearing a baby cry, a phone call from a past abuser, physical pain, which is another one of mine. It seems like if I'm in a lot of physical pain, it can cause a severe switch. It even states here, alters with hostile intentions in therapy may take control shortly before an appointment. I've had that happen where I know that I have a doctor's appointment that I need to go to that my therapist will accompany me with, and as soon as I get to that hospital, it seems like there is an instant trigger and switch for an alternative state to take over, because I have a high fear of what's going to happen in that hospital. I feel like I'm trapped there because you can't just leave when you want to. There's a lot of intensity with these appointments. So here it talks about blank spells, and this is also part of it. The blank spells have usually occurred over an extended period of time, but there may be periods of years in the past when the alters were quiescent, I don't know the word for that, A variation on this is the patient who reports a period of years during which he or she's experienced frequent depersonalization but no amnesia. During this time, the alters were co-present without amnesia, or the DID may simply have gone to remission. Now I want to discuss that because it's a very complex issue, because remember, DID comes with amnesia. But what happens is if an alternative state feels the role is much needed to take over for an abundance of time, they will give you view of what they're doing. But for me, it's like I have no control over what's coming out of my mouth, my body behavior, and my mannerisms, okay? Over time, with intense therapy, you can get those memories back. But then you also have the problem of, an example would be when my dad had died in 2019, my alternative state squeezy had been dormant for a very long time until he died, and she felt the need she was needed. And she come out, had a full history of stuff that I was missing, etc. So another thing that comes with this is changes in handwriting, artwork, even music variations can be done by alternative states. As states here, changes in handwriting frequently occur in DID, especially in diaries or journals. The changes may be subtle or obvious. Some child personalities write in large printed letters with childish spelled errors, letter omissions, and letter inversions. Sometimes these seem a bit much or put on. Angry alters may leave furious scratchings or angry statements in the script that embodies their rage. Slant may switch from left to right, and occasionally personalities write in reverse script, which has to be read in a mirror sometimes. To a naive person, the different script looked like handwriting of distinctly different people. Now, my handwriting was analyzed, and my handwriting is very different in variation. It is the same with my artwork. Alters have various different styles of artwork, and these are shown in previous videos. So last, let's talk about pain and what the clinical features are in this book with that. And I'll give you a little bit of, again, of my own example. It states there is a lot of drama in DID. This does not invalidate the diagnosis. It is a fact about a serious and treatable form of human suffering. The second thing to remember about the personality system is that it is driven by pain. Despite the color, complexity, and fascinating theater of the personalities, their wars, love affairs, and internal friendships, they are not people. And they exist to help the patient cope with pain. There is no need to be wistful or regretful about the disappearance of an alter on the site of integration, because that it is a step towards healing the pain. The patient may even mourn the loss of an alternative state, but the therapist should not. Now, I want to touch basis on a little bit about that. I had a ex-friend of mine literally make a comment on one of my videos stating that, they just got diagnosed and I have no right to force integration. And the thing is, I've never forced integration. I chose it as an option because for me, having this disorder is very painful, and I would like to feel better, and I would like to not have amnesia. And there are some forms of people that have it that are able to function with multiplicity. I, however, find it very struggling and cannot. I still have, I do believe, 3 alternative states left that I have full-blown amnesia with that I want to work with and get to know and to integrate eventually. So here in this book, it states in this book, someone asked me at a workshop once if integration results in the loss of richness and creativity for the patient. Isn't the patient more interesting as a multiple than as a unified person with problems? My answer was to say that the personality system is driven by pain. DID isn't pleasant entertainment. Part of the problem with the heterogenesis and social role explanations, which are really dismissals of DID, is that they imply that the patient and therapist are having an interesting tea party together, making up mutual satisfying illusions. Therapy is hard work for both parties. The alternative states, put the other way, are devices. Like any theater, the personality system is based on certain conventions and structural roles. Part of the therapy is mapping and dismantling these, replacing them with normal, happier, and more functional rules and structure. The patient is acting as if he or she is more than one person, but they are not. This is different from Hollywood acting because the patient is so absorbed in the different roles that he or she believes in their reality. When I discussed this point with a drama professor, he said that acting students who become too absorbed in their roles become more poor actors. DID is not acting in a sense that Hollywood actors perform their role. And that this continues on with a lot more interesting facts. But I want to point out that, for me, with the brain scans that I had, each alternative state that would come out during that scan would show shutting the brain down in one part of the body and lighting up in another. This is a feature that is vital to have an assessment with, because people that fake DID or imitate DID, this function doesn't happen in their brain scans. It also doesn't show fluctuation of variations of sights, your sight, variations of blood pressure, variations of somatic symptoms. So one alter can be blind, one alter can have a disability that another alter may not, such as pain in certain parts of the body or the inability to move. These are very important features in DID that are not discussed on social media apps. And that is why, people, it's funny because have I ever been fake claimed? Not really, but I've had people say that DID isn't real. And it doesn't bother me, and I don't find the need to attack these people. I just say, I'm sorry you feel that way. However, I am not going to change my therapy or my healing because of something that you believe in. That's their belief, that's their right, and I can't change that. All I can do is say you're more than welcome to review the information and of what I go through, which is CBT, DBT, EMDR, and now the start of DNMS. So these are clinical features that my therapist uses to help me get better. And I hope you found that this video was a little bit useful. You're more than welcome to use it in your therapy or show your mental health care professional. Everything that I do on this page is a little bit about information about myself, a little bit about what I do, and sticking to the research. And my videos are not, I don't get paid for this. I am disabled medically and have been since 2009. And so there are a lot of things that people don't understand with DID, is that over the years, if you do not heal it, which is something that these TikTokers don't seem to show, is it can start the body in being in a hyperarousal all the time into a disability. My issue is I have this fibromyalgia. I have this started degenerative disease in my back and neck. And lately, the autoimmunity has been kind of kicking my butt. I have IBS. I have high blood pressure. I have acne that adults don't usually have too often. I have a lot of things that I deal with, cysts all over my body, in my neck, in my abdomen, in places I don't even want to mention. My body is in hypoarousal all the time because of the switching. So now I have to deal with these ailments and disabilities that make me not able to function in society like I'd like to. So that is why I do all this work. So that's all I have today. I'm going to try to get a few things in the house done, and then I'm going to lay down again because I'm still trying to deal with this pneumonia shot and the swelling of my arm for 4 days, and people telling me it's okay, triage. I did call triage and they said it's fine, just keep resting. I guess it takes a while, as somebody had stated in previous comments, the antibodies, that your antibodies got to build to deal with it or something like that. So, all right, love you guys. Bye.